Interestingly enough, filing for bankruptcy in Arkansas can be honestly pretty expensive, right? Everyone's situation is different, so sometimes it can be difficult to come up with $2,000 to pay for a bankruptcy attorney in Little Rock to Fort Smith or across Arkansas to file your case. And so if you've probably already noticed from the title, today I'm actually going to be going through the 10 different steps that you may need to take so you can file Chapter 7 bankruptcy in Arkansas without using an attorney. So let's get right into it. Welcome to the Ascend Finance YouTube channel, where we cover Chapter 7 bankruptcy and help you understand the costs, pros and cons, and ultimately help you be informed and get out of debt cheaper, easier, and faster. Now, to personalize this whole video to your situation, I'm actually going to link a bankruptcy filing software in the description that was built for Arkansas residents and for those in all 50 states who are potentially unable to afford an attorney, but are still kind of looking for some sort of step-by-step guidance on filing their own bankruptcy. Now, the software can actually automatically pull your creditor information and upload that information to the forms to save you time. It'll also provide the specific courthouse in Arkansas that you may be handling your case. In addition, the forms can be a bit clunky, right, and hard to understand, so that bankruptcy filing software kind of changes the way you fill out these forms, right? So instead, it's going to actually ask you questions in form of quizzes and then actually automatically fill out the forms for you. Now, if you actually want to see whether the software could work for your situation, feel free. You can just go ahead and take the short questionnaire. I linked it in the description below for you. It'll essentially help you understand whether the software will work for your situation. Now, keep in mind, this video honestly is just for informational purposes only and should never really be construed as any kind of legal advice. So all that said, let's kind of start with step number 1. Now, first, it's typically helpful to try to gather your information and documents before you dive into filing and filling out all the forms. You want to try to get a sense of your essential information like assets, debts, income, and expenses. And what you can do to help with that is grabbing a few free copies of your credit reports. That way you have all your information in front of you and it doesn't cost you anything to do that. Now, you also may want to get documents related to your tax returns for the last 2 years, along with any kind of paperwork showing your income, expenses, debts, and of course, your assets. Now, step 2, you're going to want to complete what's called the Chapter 7's means test. Now, this test is ultimately going to help you determine if you qualify for Chapter 7 bankruptcy, meaning like, are you able to go through the process and wipe the unsecured debt away? Okay, so step 3, you're going to want to complete your credit counseling course. So if you end up passing the means test in step 2, you're most likely going to make the next move to completing your credit counseling course. This is going to be the first of 2 courses that you may actually need to take in order to file bankruptcy and potentially get your discharge. Step 4, okay, it's now time to actually fill out the forms. There are about 24 forms, I think, but depending on your situation, the paperwork could stack up to like 70 or more pages. And you can actually find these forms on the official US court website. Okay, but let me pause and jump in for a second before we kind of go too far. As I mentioned, there are a lot of forms, right? And it can be difficult to compile everything as well. So the software that I mentioned will not only fill out the forms automatically based on how you're answering these questions, but it's also going to give you the ability to preview all the forms and download all of them in one click. That's just in one place, so you don't have to worry about missing any documents. You just click download all and it'll provide you with all the forms filled out. Now, again, if you want to see if the software works for your situation, just go to that description below and click that link to check it out. Okay, step 5, you want to have your filing fee ready. Now, before filing, you want to make sure that you most likely have that $338 filing fee ready to go. This fee is most likely paid straight to the courts when you file your forms. Now, you can potentially actually use money orders, cash, or maybe a check to pay the court directly. Now, if you actually can't pay the fee full up front, you may be able to pay it in installments or even get it waived completely. But those are things to look into and reach out to the court about. Okay, step 6 is going to be filing your bankruptcy forms with the court. Now, we're getting close, so once everything is filled out, you want to print your forms and you're going to want to make sure to print on just one side of the paper. You want to look to see if there's any errors, then sign in all the correct spots, and then you'll also want to attach copies of your income evidence that you found over the last 6 months. You're going to have your credit counseling certificate as well to prove that you went through that, and if it's applicable, you'll have your application to waive or pay the fee in installments. Okay, step 7. Now you're gonna want to actually mail the required documents to the trustee. You're gonna keep an eye on your mailbox, just ultimately making sure that if you get mail from the trustee or the bankruptcy court or any kind of creditors, you're opening it up and getting a sense of what they're sending you. That way you don't miss anything that could potentially lead to your case being dismissed, right? Okay, step 8, you're gonna complete your debtor education course. So now that we've actually mentioned the credit counseling course, you're gonna wanna also take what's called the debtor education verification course. It's often offered by the same company, so you want to get that taken care of as well, and then file your certificate with the court. Step 9 is the 341 first meeting of creditors. So about 30-ish to 45 days after you filed, you'll actually have the first meeting of creditors. Now, in this meeting, the trustee is going to just ask you some questions under oath, but typically these questions are about the information you already provided in the form, so everything should be okay. Now, step 10, your car loans and any kind of secured debts. So secured debts like car loans aren't necessarily going to be discharged or wiped away in a bankruptcy. So you'll actually want to either keep making payments or potentially surrender it or do something entirely else. But if you do want to keep your car, there's one way about going about that, and that's typically called reaffirming the loan. This basically means that the loan stays active outside of the bankruptcy, and so you'll be able to keep paying on that. Now, of course, if you default on that later, the lender can potentially repossess the car, but that's kind of what a reaffirmation is. Thank you guys so much for watching and sticking around until the very end. I know the 10 steps can feel quite long. As I mentioned, feel free to fill out the questionnaire. It's in the description. That way you can see whether the bankruptcy filing software could work for you. Thank you guys so much for watching and have a great rest of your day.